final sentencing verdict on this count, and we, the jury, understand that as a result, the court will impose a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on this count.
You don't know a damn thing about black people. We're human. We like our kids to go to good schools. We love our kids. We never go in no neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
The courtroom was filled with tension. Families of victims sat on one side, their eyes burning with the pain of loss. On the other side, James Holmes, the man who had brought unspeakable horror to an Aurora, Colorado movie theater, sat in a cold, emotionless stare. The jury had already heard the details of the brutal attack, a midnight screening of The Dark Knight Rises, where Holmes, dressed in tactical gear, opened fire on a crowded theater, killing 12 and wounding 70. As the prosecution laid out the case, it became clear Holmes, armed with an assault rifle, a shotgun, and a handgun, methodically attacked the unsuspecting moviegoers. His actions were premeditated, and the shock and terror spread like wildfire across the country. When his defense attorneys argued insanity, the court struggled to understand if this act of mass murder was the result of a deranged mind or something far darker. Was it a calculated decision, or was it madness that pushed him to massacre innocent lives? The families wept as they read their victim impact statements. They shared memories of their lost loved ones, hoping the court would deliver a sentence that matched the horror Holmes had unleashed on that fateful night.
I am now a single mother of one child. He was one of the two best things I ever did, and now my life is basically half of what it was.
The judge would later sentence Holmes to 12 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole and an additional 3,318 years.
Running all of the sentences consecutive and adding them all up, I believe the total comes out to 12 life sentences without the possibility of parole, consecutive to each other and consecutive to 3,312 years in the Department of Corrections.
This sentence may be shocking to hear, but no sentence could ever bring back the victims. Dylann Roof stood in the courtroom, his face expressionless, as the families of the victims filled the gallery. Roof's crime was one of the most heinous acts of racial violence America had seen in recent years. On June 17, 2015, he entered the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where a Bible study group was meeting. He sat with them for nearly an hour before opening fire, killing 9 black parishioners, including the pastor, Clementa Pinckney. The trial was a national spectacle, with Roof's own words from his confession making the rounds. He had hoped to start a race war. The prosecution painted him as a cold, calculating killer who chose his victims based on their race. But the courtroom drama reached its peak when family members of the victims spoke directly to Roof, forgiving him.
I would never talk to her ever again. I would never be able to hold her again. But I forgive you.
Despite the incomprehensible pain he caused, they looked him in the eyes, declaring that they would not let hate define them. The jury convicted Roof on all charges, and he was sentenced to death.
They withdrawing the death penalty and entered the plea that gave to life.
His actions forever scarred Charleston, and the impact of his massacre continues to haunt the neighborhood, even almost a decade later. It was an ordinary day in Santa Fe, Texas. But that day, May 18, 2018, would change everything. Dimitrios Pagourtzis, a 17-year-old high school student, walked into his classroom carrying a shotgun and a .38 caliber revolver. Within moments, he had killed 10 people, 8 students and 2 teachers, wounding 13 others. The courtroom was charged with emotion as the survivors gave their testimony. describing the horror they faced in those few minutes of chaos. Pagourtzis, who had reportedly shown signs of being a troubled teen, appeared almost detached during his trial. He had planned the shooting in detail, leaving a journal behind with his motives rage against people he felt had wronged him. He chose the victims based on personal grudges. As the defense attempted to argue for Pagourtzis' mental state, claiming he was deeply troubled, the families of the victims demanded justice. They wanted to see him held accountable for his deliberate actions. The prosecutor's closing argument was heart-wrenching, emphasizing how a community had been shattered and how no punishment could ever erase the horror of that day. On November 4, 2019, Pagourtzis was found by 3 experts to be unfit to stand trial. He has been in custody at North Texas State Hospital since that month. On March 11, 2020, after hospital experts submitted a report declaring that he was not competent, nor likely to become so in the next 90 days, Judge John Ellisor signed an order requiring him to remain in mental health treatment for at least 12 months. On February 11, 2022, Pagourtzis was again found incompetent to stand trial and was ordered to stay in the mental hospital for another 12 months. Since then, Pagourtzis has been found not competent to stand trial and recommitted on February 1, 2023, January 26, 2024, and January 24, 2025. Payton Gendron walked into the Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo on May 14, 2022, with one goal in mind: to execute a racist attack. Armed with an AR-15 style rifle, Gendron systematically targeted black shoppers, murdering 10 people in cold blood. The courtroom was heavy with emotion as the victims' families spoke of their grief. Gendron had been driven by a white supremacist ideology, which he had expressed openly in his social media posts leading up to the massacre. The defense tried to claim he was influenced by online radicalization, but the prosecution argued that Gendron's actions were entirely his own. He had come to Buffalo with the sole intention of slaughtering innocent people. The most powerful moment in the trial came when the victim's sister addressed Payton, asking why he had chosen her sister. And at one moment, one of the family members couldn't hold himself any longer.
Man, you don't know a damn thing about black people. We're human. We like our kids to go to good schools. We love our kids. We never go in no neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
In the sentencing phase, Gendron was sentenced to 11 concurrent life sentences without the possibility of parole plus 90 years to run consecutively. But for the community of Buffalo, the damage was done irreparable loss and a reminder of the hate that continues to spread in society.
There is no place for you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies. You will never see the light of day as a free man ever again.
On February 14, 2018, Nikolas Cruz entered Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland and set into motion one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history. Armed with an AR-15 rifle, Cruz opened fire in the halls and classrooms, killing 17 people and injuring many others. The attack, carried out during the school day, left students and teachers trapped in fear, with many of them desperately trying to escape. Cruz, a former student with a history of behavioral issues, had planned the attack for months. Investigations revealed a troubled past filled with warning signs that were tragically overlooked. The trial that followed exposed not just Cruz's violent actions, but also the mental health struggles he had faced and his apparent lack of remorse. While the defense argued for a lenient sentence, Claiming that Cruz's troubled upbringing and mental health contributed to his actions, the victims' families fought for justice, expressing how their lives had been forever altered by his choices. During the trial, heart-wrenching victim impact statements filled the courtroom. The families shared their grief, describing the vibrant lives of those they had lost and how the tragedy had torn apart their communities.
You took my son away and a teacher away that loved his children. Someone you never met. You never had anything to do with. That's what you did. You're a bastard. You're a freaking animal.
Cruz was eventually sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a verdict that left many feeling that justice had been served, yet could never bring back those who had been lost that fateful day.
The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole.
The scars left on Parkland and beyond would never fade, and the memory of that senseless act of violence would endure as a tragic reminder of the vulnerability of our schools.